Good evening, everybody. Hi, this is the September 25th, 2017 meeting of the Development Governmental Relations Subcommittee to Holyoke City Council. I'm the chairman. With me is Mike Sullivan, Joe McGivern, Pete Tallman, Nelson Roman is on the committee, and I'm sure he's on his way. And thank you for being here. First item up, previous meeting minutes. Somebody want to make a motion to take it off the table?
I can make a motion to take it off the table. Accept the minutes.
On the motion to take the meeting minutes off the table, all in favor? Aye. Another motion, if I could.
Motion to accept the previous meeting minutes.
Second.
On the discussion, any discussion for the previous meeting minutes? Hearing none. On the motion to accept the previous meeting minutes, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. If I could get a motion for number 2, please.
Motion to take item number 2 off the table.
Second.
On the motion to take number 2 off the table, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Motion. Order that the committee invite Tim Brennan, the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission Director, to a meeting. And lo and behold, look at this. Here's Tim Brennan right there in front of us. Isn't that amazing? So, Tim, thank you so much for being here. So, when we changed this committee 4 years ago, this is what we envisioned, that we would have folks that make decisions that impact Holyoke, the region, that would come before us and just have a little presentation, then we'll have a little give and take. We've quite often had our state delegation here, at least on 4 occasions, been very helpful. We've had other elected officials, other stakeholders come in, advocates. It's been really helpful to me, and so what we'll do is, oh, and also with us, if lest I forget, the Honorable Mr. Leahy is with us as well, City Councilor Jim Leahy. And so we've got other advocates here. It's been really, really wonderful. And I may have a couple of questions as we go along. I kind of want to have you give a presentation, introduce yourself, introduce the PVPC, tell us a little bit about how it impacts Holyoke. I mean, I think those of us that are up here know just how important PVPC is, whether it's for the wetlands issue, whether it's for the rail, whether it's for transportation in other ways, for housing. There's so many things that you can touch upon. I did receive a memo just today, ironically, from PVPC as well regarding medical marijuana. So, was it medical marijuana? Recreational marijuana. Sorry about that. So that's kind of salient as well. So without further ado, Tim, I want you to take a few minutes to tell us about yourself and PVPC. Thank you. Is that light on?
Here? Okay. Thank you for the invitation. I'm happy to be here. I understand you have a pretty busy agenda, so I will try to be brief. And if there are things I leave out that are important, then I look to you for questions. Pioneer Valley Planning Commission is a public agency. We've been around since 1962. We're a collection of communities that at one point in time voluntarily agreed to join, including Holyoke, which is a founding member. That's 43 cities and towns in all, about 1,200 square miles, so we're about equivalent spatially to Rhode Island, and 630 plus thousand population, which in the United States makes us a medium-sized metropolitan area. Our job is to work primarily regionally, so we are interested and involved in problems that go beyond a municipal boundary. But I don't want to forget that there's lots of one-on-one technical assistance that we provide on request from city officials, whether it's city council, planning board, mayor, conservation commission, etc. We function principally with competitive state and federal grants in the activity areas that we're heavily involved in. I'm going to give you some illustrative examples of the ones that are heavily involved with Holyoke. But there's also a local assessment that communities pay. So our budget is about $6 million per year now. About 1.5 of that is passed through. We're passing it through our agencies to specific projects. every city and town has an assessment annually of just shy of 16 cents per capita. So Holyoke, for example, has an assessment bill of about $6,400 this fiscal year. Variety of roles, very traditional roles in planning, economic development, land use, etc. But we also have some special roles. We do quite a bit of work with the help of Pat Boudry, who's with me tonight, on advocacy at both the federal and state level on legislation that either could benefit or harm region and their member communities. We also have oftentimes an intermediary role in grants. For example, federal agency called the Economic Development Administration. We're a coordinator for them, and in the Holyoke instance, we're instrumental in getting grant award for the Holyoke Community Center Culinary Center that's under construction as we speak. Commission is governed by a commission made up of a representative from every member city and town. By law, the primary representative we call the commissioner comes from the planning board, and then the community is entitled to an alternate, and the alternate is the select of the chief elected official, the mayor. Right now, Holyoke is represented by 2 planning board members, Mimi Panich and Eileen Regan. Commission meets 4 or 5 times a year. It deals with the high-end policy issues, also things like budget, adoption of important regional plans, but we also have a 9-member executive committee, and they're meeting monthly and more or less hands-on in terms of the operation of the organization day in and day out. Planning commissions all came about post-World War II when there was realization that either problems or opportunities no longer could be confined by municipal boundaries. So there was lots of incentives in the beginning back in the 60s for states to put enabling laws in place. Our state was one of the first, and then to have planning commissions established by, again, individual votes of the communities within their territory. So some examples of projects that I thought were particularly important to underscore with respect to how we relate to Holyoke. For 25 plus years, we've been working on the Connecticut River cleanup. It's a federal mandate. We have to get to what's called Class B water, which is fishable, swimmable. There was a time when we relied on an annual earmark from Congress. They went away several years ago. Doesn't look like they're coming back anytime soon. And so we've switched our attention to the state environmental bond and trying to bring monies that go towards actual projects in the ground. Most recently, we have gotten an earmark from the state for $1.5 million, and those monies come into us and get pushed out again to Holyoke, Springfield, and Chicopee, because you're the communities that still have combined sewer overflow issues that we're trying to correct. Another project that's definitely of interest, several years ago we were successful in getting the Maine North-South rail line, dubbed the Knowledge Quarter, rebuilt. $73 million of stimulus money, and then enhanced with the state investment, which took the total cost up to about $123 million. I am intently involved now in trying to get additional service above Springfield. There's only one train a day, which is the Vermonter. It's one of the most successful trains now in the Amtrak system, since we were able to move it back onto the main line to serve Holyoke, Northampton, and Greenfield. Now we're trying to expand that service by ideally adding 2 trips a day in the morning, 2 trips in a day in the late afternoon, evening, and capitalize on the very robust ridership we're already getting and get a fuller return on investment, so to speak. I mentioned in passing the recent EDA award for the culinary center. There's been several in the past. As your chair just mentioned, we just put out on Friday advanced guidance to our cities and towns about how to react to the recreational marijuana law, and specifically a first step being a moratorium to buy adequate time for cities and towns, particularly for towns, to get their zoning in place. It's a complicated scheme, but we're suggesting, particularly to towns, it might be wise for them to look at a moratorium to buy them sufficient time to organize and get appropriate zoning provisions in place. So we did that on Friday. Our next step is to actually work on model ordinances and bylaws to share with our cities and towns, which will happen in the new year when we have the benefit of the regulations to react to. We've also, working for years, as many of you know, on the initial creation of the Massachusetts Green High Performance Computing Center. Holyoke still has a Holyoke Innovation District, and I co-chair with Holyoke's planning director what we call the kitchen cabinet that works on trying to implement projects to particularly benefit the 4 census tracts in the downtown heart that creates the innovation district. Another exciting project that's coming in the spring of 2018 that you are directly involved in is the Pioneer Valley Regional Bike Share Project. We secured $1.3 million for all the capital equipment needed to launch this. You are among a handful of communities, South Hadley, Springfield, Amherst, Northampton, and the University of Massachusetts that will launch this beginning in the spring of 2018, and we think that has a lot of exciting possibilities for the communities that are originally creating it, and over time we hope to expand that. Not all the things that we work on are so happy, however, so I better mention those too. We spent unhappily the last several months of the summer having to cut PVTA transit service up and down the valley because of a state budget shortfall that was unanticipated. We are the planning arm for the bus services that the PVTA puts out, and so we have to harmonize the amount of services that can go out versus the amount of money that's actually available. But we're still working on advocacy to try to bring some of those state resources back through an override vote, which has already happened in the House, and we're looking forward to the Senate voting on it in the next week or so. We also have been involved for many years in the Barnes Aquifer, where there's been unhappily pollution problems that have been uncovered, and that aquifer serves Holyoke, but other municipalities, Westfield, East Hampton, Southampton. So we're trying to stay involved in that, mostly through our association with the state agency, DEP. And then we're also trying to get communities ready for new EPA stormwater permit regulations. Very complicated, likely very expensive, and by getting communities, including your city, to work with others, keep those costs as modest as possible. Actually, these regulations with the new administration of Washington have been postponed a year, but actually that year will be beneficial in terms of preparatory work. I could talk for a lot more time about all the things we're involved in, the local technical assistance requests that come in individually from your community, but that gives you a thumbnail sketch of what we are, what we're all about, and how you connect to it. And we think the work we do is very impactful and beneficial for all of our municipalities, and that certainly is true for Holyoke, and I have a soft spot for Holyoke since it's the first planned industrial city in the country. So I'll stop there.
Now, Tim, when did you start, and when did you become, is it executive director?
I became a member of the staff in 1973. The first project I worked on with some other colleagues was the creation of the PVTA, actually. I became the executive director at the very beginning of 1981. I've been there a long time, and I love my work. This is not a job you'll ever get bored at.
No, I wouldn't think so. And to have somebody of your stature come before us, it's really just wonderful, Tim. And I'm sorry it took me a little while to, get around to inviting you. I should have done it before, but I hope we can invite you to come back and hear more about the updates, especially with the, we have enough bad news in Holyoke, believe me. And we all, the four of us, I know we all got an earful of it on a personal level over the weekend. So it's just been, sick of bad news. So we'll leave it at that. But so we like to hear more happy stories. And this bike share program, the North-South Rail, it's really just exciting. So one of the things I would just want to ask is, from our perspective as city councilors, I mean, we're pretty forward-looking people here, and we're outward-looking as well. We're not just insular, parochial folks. Yeah, yes, we are in Holyoke. We get it. But what are some of the things that we can do to sort of move some of these projects that you mentioned along? And if they can't think of something now, then that's okay. You can perhaps reach out to us down the road. But we would. I mean, I think I can speak for the four of us here that we certainly want to be as accessible and helpful as we possibly can.
Well, I'll just start off by saying Holyoke is one of our best communities in respect of we have great relationships with your city officials and your staff. Sometimes it's hard for us to be helpful because we don't have those connections. We've got them in spades here. In terms of things that you as city councilors can be involved in, probably the one I would pluck out first is rail. We have been working for 2 years on the expansion of Knowledge Corridor rail service. It's been a grind. We have been given signals repeatedly that this is something that the current administration is favorably disposed to, but I still think there's going to be a need for advocacy. There's a state rail plan that's being updated. We're all over it in terms of making sure the 2 passenger rail projects that would benefit our region are in it. So as we get towards October, November, supposedly that draft plan will be out, and that will be a time we need an outcry from our cities and towns, elected officials, that these are projects we want to see come to fruition. Short term is the expansion of Knowledge Corridor, the bigger project, clearly more expensive, clearly longer term, is a rail connection with Boston. The studies are done. The recommendations are very strong, 8 round trips a day between Boston and New Haven, all via Springfield, and as a second tier, a way to get back to traveling to Montreal, either Boston to Montreal or New Haven to Montreal. All those trips would obviously come through the city. That project, I think, is a very heavy lift on the advocacy side. That too will need very strong outcry of support from our region and its elected officials if we're going to keep it moving forward, even though it's a good decade and a half away.
Yeah, that's something this committee was very helpful in helping to procure the properties that on which the new Holyoke rail station rests, which if anyone in the room hasn't seen it, it's just a lovely platform. It's really at the bottom of Dwight Street at Dwight and Main, and that's really a major improvement to that area. We're hoping some of the property owners there, either across the street or budding, will maybe invest or sell to an investor, and we'll see if they can dress up that area. But it's been a really that's kind of a proud moment, I think, for the city to have a passenger rail stop in Holyoke.
We think it's a game changer for all the communities, so that's why we're so intent on trying to make it happen.
And just when you say the Vermonters, one of the more heavily traveled lines in the Amtrak system, how do we know that, Tim?
Because there's passenger data that's collected by station, and since we were able to move the Vermonter back onto the main line and therefore to hit the population centers of Holyoke, Northampton, Greenfield that haven't been served since the late 1980s when Amtrak refused to go up the main line for safety reasons. That connection between our region and New York is a very robust one. And if we had more service, I think the ridership would continue to climb. You only have one option, one train a day south, one train a day north. It doesn't come through at a time of day right now where you could, for example, get on the platform, mount the train in Holyoke and get to New York City, come back and get off at the same platform. That's one of the things we're after, because we know that's a exceedingly strong route, and Amtrak numbers are bearing that out, which is why we think we have a pretty compelling argument about why to add more service.
No, my sister, she lives in Manhattan, and so she's taken that train numerous times to come visit me, and I just, for whatever reason, take the Peter Pan or the Greyhound, so to visit her, but just because the timing from picking up the train in Holyoke isn't convenient at all for me to go visit her, so that's, yeah, I hear you with that. And just one last thing before I turn the mic over to somebody else. On the Barnes Aquifer, I don't think that should just be left in passing, because that is just something that, I mean, Joe's talked about many times, Pete has talked about many times. Can you just give us a Reader's Digest version of the Barnes Aquifer's impact on Holyoke, and then the negative part, and then what should we be doing from our end?
Well, the Barnes Aquifer, to put it simply, is an underground reservoir. It's shared by several communities, including Holyoke. There's de-icing agents that are used at the Barnes Air Base that have apparently penetrated down into the aquifer. DEP has been doing a lot of testing. These are materials that are seen as problematic, and through our Barnes Aquifer Committee, we're trying to work with DEP, which is sort of the driving regulatory force to do something about this and turn this around.
So I know that there is a there is a committee.
That's the Barnes Aquifer.
The Barnes Aquifer Committee.
Right.
Okay, and so that's made up of folks from Westfield, East Hampton, Southampton, and Holyoke as well.
Right.
All right, and is that, and that's kind of coordinated by
Our agency.
by PVPC. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that's, boy, that's, and if there are minutes and things of that sort, I could probably find them on the PVPC
Yes.
website as well, Tim? Yeah.
Patty Gambarini is our lead staff person, so
And-
she's the person.
And what is it, PVPC dot, what is your website? .org, PVPC, thanks, Pat. All right, pvpc.org. All right, Joe McGivern, Councilor McGivern?
Thank you, Councilor Bartley. And Tim, if I were to say your reputation precedes you, that's not doing justice. I'd rather say, congratulations on a 44 year of public service.
Thank you.
And I know firsthand, sitting here since 1980, that Holyoke isn't just a soft spot in your heart. You've proven over the years, and you've been here for Holyoke in a number of different projects, just a few that you mentioned here this evening. While you are here, though, if I could just pick your brains on a couple of these new items. In this very briefly, because I haven't had a chance to read the advisory, but on the recreational marijuana, we have some mixed feelings and some mixed opinions about the importance of a moratorium to Holyoke. We've already done our manufacturing zoning laws, and we feel we can quickly adapt them to recreational, but retail is a whole different animal with recreational marijuana, and we want to make sure we get it right as the state's trying to do their same. Are we hurting the city of Holyoke in terms of potential vendors down the road by keeping our moratorium going to coincide with the state?
Thank you so much. The driving force for our activity behind it is to help cities and towns to thoughtfully deal with this, however they choose to, their choice. The information we just put out about moratoriums is after going to a number of forums, sessions with the Attorney General's office, and seeing that there could be a problem with the timing chain such that towns, less cities, towns, could lose their ability to zone appropriately for them before applications start coming in. So that was the driving force. Cities, because they need not go to town meeting for zoning approvals, we think can make it within the confines of the time that's available. And that's what we say in the cover memo that we sent out on Friday. So I guess this is a long-winded way of saying, no, I don't think you're hurting the community at all.
I'm not sure if you're familiar, but my understanding, as we're told, is the state is looking at an April 1st date of accepting applications.
Correct.
Their moratorium goes to July 1st. Our moratorium goes to July 1st, but doesn't address the applications. Would you have any understanding, or could we find out, will our moratorium prevent us from accepting applications unless we address it?
Working from memory, we think that by December 31st of 18, cities could, within the clock, sort of do whatever they need and want to do to prepare. Towns, however, because they must submit bylaws to the Attorney General's office, there's a window of often 90 days before they hear back. And that's where it could jump over the December 31st and sort of pull away from the opportunity to do the same thing other communities around them would do. So that's all we're trying to do, is to protect their options. And then we're going to fast forward onto the other main job, which we did with medical marijuana, which is to prepare, working with an in-region work group, model bylaws to guide cities and towns in any way, shape, or form they choose to.
Okay. And I know you were very helpful in, with our language for medical marijuana,
Right.
in terms, especially in terms of manufacturing. Jumping topics real quick. We've lived, and I, for one, and I think most of us believe that cleaning up the Connecticut River is an important job of the Pioneer Valley, all the residents, and so on. But as you mentioned, when you look at Springfield, Chicopee, and Holyoke, the metropolis of this project, the people who live here now didn't create the problem, they inherited it.
Correct.
And there was a time, and you even mentioned it a little bit earlier, where there was available funding through the federal government, through the state government, to help these communities go through it. If I remember correctly, before my time, the city of Worcester had their entire city done all on federal dime.
Right.
That's dried up completely. Is there a way we can do some type of, and with the stormwater regulations coming down the road, is there a way we can do some type of advocacy to convince the federal government that we need those dollars, or at least some type of help?
We have not stopped our advocacy, but the appetite for Congress to put dollars in programs for CSO cleanup, because there's CSO problems all across the country, to date is low. Again, we had the great benefit at one point in time of having a congressman over at the time who would routinely put an earmark in on an annual basis, no more than $2 million a year, but that has completely gone away. And I'm sure you've followed what's happening with EPA these days. So we've turned our attention, at least for the short range, in convincing the state that in lieu of the federal earmarks, we turn to get earmarks from the environmental bond bill. And we've been successful 3 years on that. Again, the latest one is $1.5 million, bringing the money in and then pushing it out to the projects in the 3 affected cities. I would hope there be, at some point in time, a turnaround this in Washington, perhaps that huge infrastructure bill that's been talked about for a year or so, but short of that, I can't be very optimistic, honestly.
I appreciate that, and that's the read that we get. If there's anything we can ever do, please let us know. And I, for one, is not afraid to stand up and say our federal government does a great job of saving the world. Why don't we start saving the country? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Council Tallman?
Yep. Thanks a lot, Tim, for coming down, and thanks for the work you've done for our community over the years. Just an issue that's come up recently, and I don't know if Pioneer Valley has anything to do with it, but it's about 141, the new entrance ramp they're talking about up off East Hampton Road. Is there anything that you're dealing with in that? Because I know a lot of people had made that meeting. It was a meeting about 2 weeks ago up, to make an extra entrance south to 91 as you're going down East Hampton Road.
I'm not familiar with it. We do have a role in that we're the agency that's responsible for programming all the projects by federal fiscal year. It's a document we call a Transportation Improvement Program. It's in sync with the federal fiscal year, so the new federal fiscal year begins October 1st, and then it has 3 years behind that. I'm not aware that we have a project in that document, but I'd certainly be happy to look and hear any of the feedback you can provide about that.
Yeah, I think there was a meeting a couple of weeks ago. I think it's the Department of Transportation, and it must be a state, because it's a state road,
Right.
wanting to put another ramp and take the one up by University Park and shut that down, because there's a ramp going off, exit 17, and there's another one coming on right at the same spot where there's a set of lights. So I'll be in touch with you. I just
Okay.
said some of the people in that area
Yep.
were really concerned about that, and as far as some of the neighborhoods up there, the people can't actually get out as it is on East Hampton Road because it's a very well-traveled street,
Do you know if the MassDOT staff were out of the district or out of Boston?
I think it's out of Boston, I'm not sure, but like I said, they had a meeting, and I guess there was, they passed out flyers in one of the neighborhoods and had people send in their comments about that, because the people were really concerned. But I will get in touch with you afterwards and try to get you more
Please.
information. Anything you can find out for the people in that neighborhood, I'd be grateful.
Be happy to do it.
Okay, thank you.
Council Sullivan?
Hi, Tim. The train station, you mentioned the additional scheduling of other trains through here. How far along is that? Or what? Yeah, I go by there 5-6 times a day. I've never seen more than 1 or 2 cars. More often than not, 0 cars. A couple of times out of curiosity, I've sat in the parking lot when the train comes in and goes out and not seen a single person get on or off. I've looked into it myself just to go on a ski trip, and you're absolutely right. You can go up, but you can't come back. You have to wait till the next day.
Right.
So, as far as it ever being useful, I think in Holyoke, something's got to be done there. How far along is that, and is there anything we could do as far as your advocacy and stuff goes?
Well, as I say, there's a updated state rail plan coming out, and that's definitely a touchstone for advocacy. I'm going actually there tomorrow morning on this subject. The idea, though, is to add 2 more trains a day in the morning and in the late afternoon, evening. The first train in the morning that we want to add, you could get on at any platform north of Springfield, meaning Greenfield, Northampton, go to New York City, come back and get off at the same platform you got on. As I say, we've been working on this 2 years. We have public promise from the Secretary of Transportation to work on us with this, with the understanding we would launch additional service as a pilot, meaning we'd have to prove what we forecast, which is very solid ridership. But I think in the case of Holyoke, you are so close to Springfield, a lot of folks will gravitate towards Springfield or even further to New Haven until we get more service, to make it more attractive and give some options. That's definitely one of the reasons why we're after it.
Is there anything we can be doing on our part to assist in the process, or?
When this draft state rail plan comes out, which is, we've been told generally it should be out in October, there'll be a public meeting that actually will probably be hosted at the PVPC. There'll be a period of public review. That's when we need an avalanche of response for the projects. Adding more service to the Knowledge Corridor is doable in a couple of years. The connection to Boston is a decade and a half kind of project, but we've got to keep both of them moving forward.
Okay.
So that's definitely a place that advocacy can be shown. We're also coincidentally having a huge conference at Union Station, Springfield on October 18th. It's on all the transportation issues, assets that we have will be coming online in the foreseeable future or that we want. And that's another place that we have 4 members of Congress from both Massachusetts and Connecticut lined up, plus both heads of transportation from Massachusetts and Connecticut. So part of that is to try to drill into what are the things that could really benefit not only our region, but both states.
And so Tim, thank you, and thank you to Pat for helping coordinate this, and Josh Garcia as well. That was really, to have you come by, Tim, is really,
Anytime, I'm
yeah,
happy
really,
to do it.
really an honor. So, and we, always learn a lot. And as I said, we'll certainly love to have you come back, and maybe next spring, and we talk about the bike sharing program, and maybe hear some more updates. If anybody wants, if you want to send a link to me about any of these other studies that have come forth, I will disseminate them to the best of my ability to the city council through our administrative assistant, and he will get that out to anyone who has any interest. I know I do, so I'll follow as closely as I can. So Tim, thank you so much for being here. It's a real honor. Okay.
Thank you for the invitation. I was glad to talk to you all.
All right.
Take
Thank
care.
you. All right. Have a good night.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, item number 3.
Oh, yeah, we will. Just a quick note. I just want to mention to my friend Pete, we'll have Rich Massey from Mass DOT come back, and that's more up his alley. I will also say this to the committee, that Mass DOT's had 2 public hearings, one held at HCC pertaining to Exit 15, which is the Holyoke Mall, and one held here at City Hall last week relative to the Lyman Street Bridge over the first level canal. So I'm just waiting for them to get back to me on some of the updates, and I'm sure they will, but those are questions we can ask down the road. All right, thank you, Councilor. I'll take, on Councilor McGivern's motion, can I have a second on that, please?
Second.
On the motion to take number 3 on the top table, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And to open up a public hearing, is that the motion, Joe?
Motion to open up a public hearing.
Second.
Okay, and the motion is public hearing, open a public hearing. Okay. The motion is, the order is a special permit application of People's Bank for a drive-through facility at 1850 Northampton Street, Corsa Street, respectively. And with us, we have advocates for People's Bank. Jay? Anybody else coming in?
We have a little army here for you.
Well, if that's the case, why don't you bring the Army through the gate?
Sure.
And then have the Army decamp somewhere on at some of the desks,
Okay.
okay?
We promise to let you go after the hearing.
Okay. Well, then why don't I introduce my little army here. Mr. Chairman, thank you for allowing us to speak. We have the development team. As you know, People's Bank has recently acquired the...
So Counselor, before us, we have Attorney John J. Driscoll, who represents People's Bank. And Attorney Driscoll's office is at 330 Whitney Avenue in Holyoke. Attorney Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The proposed redevelopment of the former Yankee Peddler property. We have with us here today from the bank, Tom Senecal, the president of the bank, Sheila Goodwin, the senior vice president, Stacy Sutton, Matt Bannister. That's everybody from the bank. But probably more importantly this evening, we have our development team for this project, headed by Andrew Crystal, who's the vice president of O'Connell Development Group. He's the project, O'Connell Development Group is the project manager. We have Jay Viamari, who's an engineer from Ty and Bond. He will review with you tonight the site plan and how it meets the special permit criteria. As you know, with your new drive-through facility ordinance, there's a number of issues that we have to touch on, and while we don't specifically have to talk about the project in itself and what's being done, we will go over the project in its current state. We also have Mike Santos, who's a traffic engineer from Ty and Bond. He will review and discuss the traffic study. And Brendan Miggins, who's an architect from EDM, he will review the conceptual plans and sort of the perspective of the new building. So I think we'll probably start with Jay Viamari. Jay has some plans here. I know there's some concern about our using plans and presentation. We'll be able to leave any plan that we use tonight here with the committee if the committee deems it necessary.
Yeah.
So Jay, why don't we turn it over to you?
So Jay, the best way is to grab a microphone, turn it on, hold it up like your Monty Hall, and then, yeah, just kind of turn it on.
How's that better?
Or Monty Hall, that big long microphone, walk it, okay, and then you're good to go. Yeah, thank
Is this
you.
the best spot for these to be set up, or
Yeah, it's good for me.
want
So-
to tweak them? All right, as mentioned, my name's Jay Viamari. I'm with Ty and Bond out of Westfield. We're the site civil engineers for the project.
Jake, can you wait 1 second?
Yep.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, but, okay. Can
Well-
we
well,
have people move a little bit?
Yeah, why don't you,
It's not set up for the best view for everybody.
and I'll tell you what we'll do, before, okay, so we are in a public hearing, so let's just, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna hear from the proponent first, okay? And then, we may or may not ask a few follow-up questions here, but we probably would, but we'll limit it to a time, a few minutes. And then what we'll do is we'll hear from the public, whether public in favor or against, or neutral, you don't really have to say. And then if the public wants to come in and look at these plans a little more closely, they can do it tonight, or you can make an appointment to see our administrative assistant, Ryan Allen, and Ryan's here, Monday through Friday, and you can call ahead, and you can come look at the plans, okay? So there's gonna be ample opportunity, whether tonight or maybe at a time where it's more convenient, okay? So, Jay, go ahead.
All right. First thing I'm going to do is give you just a quick overview of the project, and then I'll just real briefly try to, as mentioned, step through each of the drive-through ordinance criteria and then the relevant special permit criteria that we had to deal with in our application. So as mentioned, People's Bank is in the process of working on development of the former Yankee Peddler site into a banking facility. The site itself, the property includes 4 parcels. The main Yankee Peddler parcel. There's another residential parcel just to the north of that fronts on Northampton Street. And then you have 2 additional parcels that are part of the property itself with multi-story buildings that front on Courser Street. So just to summarize the overall plan as it stands now, demolition of a portion of the existing peddler facility. As most of you know, it's been in the paper. The plan right now is to preserve the front portion, the historic portion called the Hildreth House, and then add an addition to the back of the facility with all the new banking options that are needed for that. The house, the residential, actually it's not residential, the multi-story building that's on a residential parcel just north would be demolished to make room for a new entrance and parking and some green space. and the 2 existing structures on Corsa Street right now are slated to remain, and a portion of those back properties would be used, again, for parking and green space. The proposed structure will be approximately 4,500 square feet in size. Right now, proposal is to have 3 drive-up windows to the bank with stacking and queuing around the south side of the facility, parking on the north side. There's 2 entrances proposed for the facility, close to the existing one off of Northampton Street, in and out, turns both directions proposed, and another entrance onto Beach Street. This one here, the proposal is to have right turn in and right turn out only, given that we don't want traffic to be crossing multiple lanes on Beach Street trying to take a left-hand turn. So in terms of the drive-through facility ordinance standards, like I said, I'll step through each one of those quickly. Standard number 1 deals with the width of the driveways, capped at a maximum of 22 feet. As proposed, we're showing 22-foot wide on both of the access drives to the parcel. Standard 2 deals with looking at whether you can provide a common shared driveway and access across parcels. In this case, it really doesn't fit for this project, given that we're on a corner and we're bound by residential zoning to each side. Really, it doesn't make any sense to look at a common driveway for either one of the entrances. Standard 3 deals with required stacking space for the drive-through. For a financial institution, you need 4 spaces per drive-up window for a total of 12. In this case here, we have room. We're showing approximately 14 cars here. We have room actually for 20 cars if needed, so we have adequate stacking space. Standard 4 again deals with stacking, denotes the required size to use to figure out your stacking space. You're supposed to be using 20 by 10 for each space. We did use 20 by 10 in our layout. It also talks about requirement or looking at a bypass. As you can see on the plan here, approximately 12 cars back, we double the width of the access, so we do have a bypass around the south side. There was a comment made to look at whether or not we wanted to have a bypass all the way around the drive-through lane. Really, the bypass accommodates back to about 12 cars, and the thought was to trade off on adding more pavement and impervious area just to have a full bypass around wasn't worth losing the existing green space. And the thought is there likely isn't going to be many occasions where you'll have 12 cars stacked up and somebody trying to bypass around them. Standard 5 deals with making sure that your drive-through and your queuing and stacking is separated from your on-site circulation. As you can see here, the stacking and queuing is on the south side. Our main building entrances are on the north side, and all of our parking is on the north side. So we do a pretty good job of separating the 2 of them. Standard 6 deals with entrance and exit signs. A little hard to see given the size of the plan, but we are showing entrance signs and exit signs for the drive-through on site. Standard 7 again deals with site circulation, making sure that you're separate from pedestrians and parking and cars, and it also deals with making sure you're separate from other things on site like trash pickup and dealing with those types of things. We're showing the trash, dumpster location to be over here in the upper right-hand corner, which would be the northeast, which is, again, significantly away from where you'll have cars entering and exiting, so we don't anticipate a problem with that. Standard 8 deals with the queuing and stacking, separate, trying to keep it separate from the main building access. Again, I think to eliminate pedestrian problems on site. As noted, we're on the south side with all the cars lining up for the drive-through. The main bank branches and building access are both on the north side along with the parking. Standard 9 from the ordinance deals with menu boards. Obviously, a financial institution, we're not going to have a menu board, but it also talks about speakers and audio equipment need to be located more than 70 feet away from adjacent residential property lines. This is our nearest residential property line over here, and measuring we're in excess of 70 feet to where the closest speaker or teller audio would be located. And then standard 10, again, deals with menu boards. I think it's size-based, and because it's financial and not restaurant, we don't have any menu boards, so that one doesn't apply to us. So then if I'll just very quickly just step through the relevant special permit criteria that we also covered in our application. Social, economic, and community needs. As noted, it's redevelopment of an existing commercial site, underperforming commercial site. So obviously tax revenue will still come into the city, and with the financial institution, there'll also be employment opportunities. Traffic, parking, and loading. As noted, Mike Santos from our office is going to handle all the traffic right after me, so I'll just deal with the other. In terms of parking, for this size building, approximately 4,500 square feet, we need 16 parking spaces by ordinance, and we're showing 41 parking spaces, so we have well in excess of what we need for parking. Municipal resource capacity, dealing with utilities and servicing the building. Given that it was the Yankee Peddler, and now we're going to a bank, you know, right now the site is serviced water, sewer, gas, electric, all the utilities you need. Going from the Peddler, a banquet facility, down to a bank, there'll definitely be adequate water, sewer, you know, gas and electric, so we don't have any problems there. In terms of stormwater, if you look at the site plan here, the existing Peddler facility was almost 100% impervious, pavement and building. Here we're knocking it down almost to 60%, so there's a large reduction in pavement and impervious area, so our stormwater is going to go down. We still need to meet the stormwater ordinance and provide treatment and some quantity control. So typically on a site like this, we'll have deep sump catch basins, stormwater treatment units. We'll also look at if low impact development opportunities are feasible, such as rain gardens or things like that, to meet the stormwater policy. Character of the site, as we mentioned, the plan is to preserve the existing historical Hildreth house. So that goes a long way in terms of maintaining the character of the site. The other good option there is we're showing a lot of green space that used to be pavement. Lots of plantings that we're showing. In terms of lighting, the application includes a photometric plan from a lighting vendor that we're working with. You're looking for light spill on adjacent properties. If you look at that photometric plan, I believe we're almost zeros or just above zero at the relevant property lines, especially this one here next to the resident. There was a comment or a question about lighting from the canopy for the drive-through, and we've reached out to the vendor to add that to the photometric plan to make sure that doesn't cause light spill, but through a conversation with him, given the distance that we are from that property line and under that canopy, it's down lighting. He, you know, off the cuff doesn't anticipate that we'll have any additional light spill beyond what we're showing with the photometric plan now, but we will submit that once it comes in from the vendor. Natural environment is a special permit criteria. Obviously, given the location, wetlands, waterways, things like that, endangered species aren't an issue. When construction starts, all erosion, sedimentation control will be designed and in place to make sure we're not putting sediment or things into the stormwater system and impacting anything downstream. And then lastly, on the list is potential fiscal impact. As I noted, city services and utilities won't be impacted by development of the site from the existing Peddler building, and the site will continue to generate tax revenue for the city. And then the last thing I wanted to note, there were some comments that we got back on the original plan that was sent in with the application, so we made a couple slight modifications on this one here. We added a sidewalk. There wasn't a sidewalk coming off of Beach Street here, so we added a sidewalk on the right-hand side of this access with appropriate crosswalks to get into the building if you were a pedestrian from Beach Street. And then we originally showed a sidewalk coming straight into the main entrance here. And subsequent to that, we ended up revising it to move that further up. So the site access would be here through a crosswalk and over to the main entrance of the bank. And we're just showing a on-site sidewalk around it, access the front of the building. So that summarizes those things. Right now, I'll turn it over. I think we'll go through everybody and then open it up for questions. Does that make sense? So Mike Santos from our office.
Yeah, okay, just want to, because that sounds like a good plan, but let's just make sure, you know, let's not get ahead of, let's get ahead of ourselves. Do counselors have questions, you know, reasonable length of questions relative to that presentation we just heard? Because I would kind of like to sort of, I don't have one myself, but if a counselor had a question,
Quick.
I want, Councilman McGivern.
Yep. Jay, just not directly related, I understand with the drive-through permit, which is all we're really discussing this evening, and thank you for showing us the full plan.
Yep.
But where are the employees gonna park?
The employees would be in here, in this 41 spaces.
Okay.
I don't know that
And
we've, at this point, have designated a specific spot
To
for them.
Courser Street, are those driveways gonna be blocked off, the existing ones, through the buildings that are existing?
Yes, right now, the proposed plan is to separate access to those parcels, so there'll be no
Okay.
more drive-through to Corsair, there'll just be the access off of Corsair Street to those
Okay.
parcels.
So it'll only, I mean, pedestrian walk-through, whatever, but no cars will go in and out of that street?
Correct, yep, that's the existing plan.
Thank you.
Okay, and so if you're a tenant in one of the properties on Corsair Street, which, where are the buildings that are on Corsair on your map?
They're just north here.
Okay. Will they have off-street parking?
Yes, there's, you can see it here, this is their parking right here.
Okay, so-
Everything past this green line is going to be parking for those Corsair Street properties.
So
Yep,
that off-street parking will remain,
correct.
it's there.
Yep,
And, okay, just to reiterate, so employees at the New People's Bank on the corner would not be accessing the property via Corsa Street?
no, nope, I don't think that's the intention. They'll be in these parking spaces here. Like I said, exactly where, I'm not sure at this point.
Okey-doke. Any other counselors have a question relative to the parking, or to the matter that Jay just presented? No? Jay, you gotta turn the microphone on.
With respect to the parking on those two lots, they're being sort of reconfigured so that each one of those lots will individually meet zoning requirements for parking.
Thank you.
And the only other thing I want to say, I neglected to say at the start, and this is really for people from the public who might be here, this project obviously has to go through site plan review with the planning board. That process has not started yet. It will start shortly. So this hearing being just for the issue of the drive-through windows, the public certainly will have the opportunity to comment during the site plan review stage when all the city departments will have input onto this plan. I just
Thank you.
want to make that clear for the
No,
public.
that's a relevant point. Okay, so, okay.
Mike Santos from our office handled the traffic study. He's going to summarize that.
Good evening. My name is Michael Santos from Ty and Bond. I'm the senior transportation engineer on the project. Included in the special permit application is a detailed traffic impact study. It was prepared in accordance with the city guidelines. I'm going to briefly go over that study and leave it open to any questions that you might have after. So just to summarize, the traffic study, we looked at various issues. We looked at existing traffic volumes, safety in the area, site access, pedestrian connections. We looked at the drive-through operations. We made sure that there's adequate site distance at the driveways. We looked at the trip generation characteristics of the project, and we also looked at a detailed traffic operations analysis at the study area intersections. So we looked at 4 intersections. The 4 intersections we looked at are Cherry Street and Hillside Ave. It's the main intersection of Northampton Street, Beach Street, and Cherry Street. Beach Street at Hospital Drive, and then Northampton Street at Corsair Street. So we went out and did traffic counts and did some field work back in August. So, I understand that school wasn't in session, so we were able to adjust those counts upwards to, account for the higher traffic volumes that you see, in September and October. We looked at the morning, evening, and Saturday peak hours, so that's 7 to 9 a.m. in the morning, 4 to 6 p.m. in the evening, and then Saturday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. So the traffic study covers all those 3 periods. Those are generally that represent the highest periods of traffic volumes, and also, the highest periods of traffic generation for the bank. We also looked at existing crash history to determine if there are any safety issues at, at these 4 locations and within the study area. I think it's obvious the most crashes occurred at Northampton Street, Beach, and Cherry, but we did not identify any serious safety issues out there based on the crash history. The city might have other concerns out there that we can look at in more detail, but just based on what we looked at, we didn't see anything too serious. We also looked at the trip generation. So that's based on empirical data from banks with drive-thrus throughout the country, collected over the past couple decades. So based on that and the size of the bank, we're expecting this to generate approximately, the highest peak hour is going to be during the evening. We're going to see about 55 trips enter, 55 exit. So that's about as much traffic as this is going to generate. And just for comparison purposes, we also looked at the trip generation characteristics. If the existing restaurant were to be reoccupied, so that's if the restaurant had another tenant, it was in full operations, that would be generating significantly more traffic than the bank. Also, another point with the bank is that a lot of people that visit the banks they're not necessarily new trips, they're just people driving by. So it's not really a lot of additional trips on the roads, it's just people that are on their way to work or home that happen to stop into the bank. We looked at site distance. Actually, do we have the site plan that I can look at? Yeah. All right, as Jay had mentioned before, we have 2 points of access. We located them as far away from the signalized intersection at Northampton Street as possible. Those are the safest, most efficient locations to locate a driveway. Both of the streets that the driveways are located on are fairly straight and flat, so there are no sight distance issues. There's plenty of sight distance out there. And I think one of the important things that we looked at, because we do have a drive-through here, we wanted to make sure that vehicles would not queue back from the drive-through out to the main street. But as you can see, we have plenty of stacking for probably 15 or so vehicles, maybe a little bit more than that. Based on our analysis, which is based on average service times and the number of vehicles that we expect to go to the drive-through. You're probably only going to see, maybe 2 to 3 vehicles stacked at any given time. We do have three lanes, so that's plenty sufficient to handle the operations of this bank. And finally, as Jay had mentioned, we also we're providing a pedestrian connection off of Beach Street, come up through the site with the appropriate ADA accessible ramps and crosswalks, all the way through the site out to Northampton Street. So, that's a general summary of the traffic study. Like I said, the study included in the application is much more detailed, so if you have any questions, just please let me know. Thank you.
Yeah, Mike, in the, I have, this was presented to me, and then I have a, maybe Jay can help me out, maybe I'm missing it, but it says that there's a traffic study will be submitted under separate cover. So do we have that, Jay? Traffic impact study submitted under separate cover.
How many copies?
So where is it? Do I have it here? Am I looking at it, Andrew?
No, it's a separate document.
That's it, yeah. Oh, yeah, I can see it over there. I don't see it here anywhere. Do I have it here?
Andy, when was it delivered?
Same time as the
Okay.
One copy?
I think it was the 7 or 10 copies.
ask a quick question, Mr. Chairman?
Okay, well, just because we're on the mic, some people are on a microphone right now. So, so the gentleman just said that that whatever was required by the ordinance, the number of traffic studies were submitted. I'm just pointing out that I don't have it in front of me here. So there's that. But the gentleman also from Time Bond mentioned that he's going to look into it and it'll from a council and circle back. So there's that. Councilman McGivern.
Mike, real quick, without the traffic study in front of us, but the numbers on Beach Street, two concerns. Have you done a study at the right peak times and all that time as you described, but have you studied the traffic queues of both the Holyoke Medical Center and the intersection of Route 5 and Beach Street, and how that entrance egress is going to affect and work into those?
Yeah, we did look at the vehicle queues at all of the signalized intersections, and I believe, are you talking about the queues in this direction?
Well, more so Beach Street is north-south. We have a single at the medical center just below you, which is timed, I believe it's a
Right
trip
here.
time.
Yes.
Not connected to the intersection of Route 5 and Beach, 202 and Beach, however you want to call it. And during some of those peak hours, there is a backup at both of those lights.
Yeah, what we saw, the queues generally clear through one cycle. But what we did see is that, the peak queues, the maximum queues that you see may sometimes extend to the driveway locations. But because they queue in one cycle, at the worst they'll clear in two cycles. We don't see that as being an issue for exiting vehicles. The driveway is not blocked the majority of the time.
Saturday morning and Thursday evenings? Trouble?
Well, what we looked at, we don't think that the queues will greatly affect the driveways, but like I said, they can extend back beyond the driveways.
But
once
you
in a
have
while.
numbers in the traffic
But yeah,
study?
all the numbers are in the study, and I don't have it in front of me right now, but.
Thank you. David?
Council Leahy.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, thank you for your presentation. Thank you for People's Bank. Jay always does a fantastic job. I also want to take the opportunity to thank Mr. Cynical, who's back there as well. I think you guys run a first-class operation. Super big fan of People's Bank. That's my bank as well. But I just wanted to ask you, when it comes to traffic and whatnot, I do everything, People's Bank, the app, love it. Is traffic that big of a deal now when you talk about the drive-in? Because of, people, I can write a check right now, have it shipped off within 2 days to American Express, I'm golden. Are we seeing decreases in numbers for drive-through?
That's a good point. I actually don't have, the data that I have is, like I said, it's collected over the past 20 years, so I'm sure that vehicular traffic may have decreased because of that. But
Mr. Chairman, can we have Mr. Cynical answer that?
I know he is, Jim.
I know you do.
Yeah.
I'd be scared if you didn't.
We'll let him address this when.
I just came to answer the question, if you want the
sure.
question
Yeah,
answered.
go ahead, Tom.
My name's Tom Senecal, President of People's Bank, for the record. Our expectation is over time, the banking industry is starting to see a decline in transactions. However, what we're proposing here is the closure of 2 branches. So for the immediate future, we will see our customers that will require, banking services in person. But clearly, the indication is over time, transactions within brick and mortar are decreasing.
All right, that's a fantastic point. All right, thank you.
Well, since you're here, I was just ask a couple just very broad questions, Tom. So what's our timetable for this?
Is this getting approved tonight?
No.
I can't answer that. There's so many approvals that have to go on after tonight, from what I understand. From what
If it
I'm
worked
being
out
told.
perfectly, what would the plan be?
We would break ground as soon as we got the approvals. We have, from what I understand, City Council, Planning Committee, the Historical Committee. We have gotten a response from the State Mass Historical Commission on, I can't remember the words that they used, it would,
No adverse effect.
no adverse effect from the Mass Historical Commission. So depending upon all that approval process, as you well know, as this committee well knows, the local ordinance on demolition of historic buildings could be a 6 to 8 month delay by the time that that gets through that. If that's not delayed, we would break ground as soon as possible.
And then the time needed to complete development, what's the estimation?
About 12 months.
And at this point, we're just considering closing South Street and Hampden Street?
Yes.
I told you it's broad questions, I don't want to pry, but you sat down there, so
Okay.
your choice. Okay, so do we have any, committee members have any specific questions for relative to the traffic analysis? Nothing? Mike, just on, there's a traffic light at Hospital Drive and Beach Street. And so what I've seen there is that there's a no turn on red when cars are, I know technically that road goes north and south, but to me it's heading west, okay? So there's a no turn on red when it's heading west. So cars get kind of backed up. I don't notice there's not a similar sign when you're exiting Hospital Drive. So there's, you can just take a right at your pleasure. What, if any, thoughts have we put into relative to that traffic light and to those no turn on red signs, and what impact, if any, would they have on this project?
Are you talking about coming, I guess,
Out of the hospital.
there's a no turn on red out of hospital?
There's a no turn on red when you're traveling west on Beach Street. And there is not a similar sign when you're exiting Hospital Drive. So there's no turn on red if you want to turn into Hospital Drive. So you've got to wait. You've got to wait for a light. There is no similar sign when you're exiting Hospital Drive to take a right onto Beach heading west.
Yeah, that no turn on red might not even be necessary to turn onto Hospital Drive. That's something that I can ask. There might be a reason for it. The city engineer might have a reason for that.
Well, I wish you would. So okay. So I just want to bring it to your attention because that cars do queue up there, and so with your project coming online, or hopefully coming online, I just want to have a clear understanding of all the traffic flow completely, all the way back as far as you can. So
Yeah, usually if you have a no turn on red, it's because you have heavy pedestrian volumes, but I actually don't know what the reason for that sign is. It doesn't seem necessary to me.
I don't think there's, not across Beach Street to my knowledge. I don't.
Crosswalk right here.
Is there? Okay, I can't picture it, so maybe there's one there. Okay,
But Mr. Chairman, just to make clear, that coming out of the People's parcel, it would be right turn only coming out onto Beach Street.
I'll copy that.
correct?
Yep,
Yeah.
that's right. So it's a right turn only, and there'll be some kind of a, and we know how well that curbing works over going in and out of Kmart Plaza. No left turn on there. Everybody observes that sign, Jay. It's the most ignored sign in Holyoke, in the history of Holyoke. So there will be appropriate safeguards, like besides a sign. Yeah. Everybody obeys signs. You know how that goes. We follow signage here like to a T.
Yeah, if the intent is to just keep it to right turns only, we would have to, I imagine we would have to design it. Yeah, we'd have to design it just to physically restrict people from turning left.
Like a spike strip down there as well? Is that legal?
Probably
You
not.
can't do that?
but-
Can you do that? No? All right, so those are my questions. Okay, Mike, thank you. Oh, it's on. Yep, you're live.
There we go. My name is Brendan Miggins. I'm with EDM and on the design team there. And I'll be taking you through the conceptual level of design. We're at a very early level of design with People's Bank in regards to the building itself. So these are very broad stroke diagrams that we're talking about, and intended to show the general direction we see it going in as we continue to develop it. Very early on in the project, it was determined that a major strategy would be to restore the Hildreth House to its original footprint, original aesthetics, and you know, for instance, the Yankee Peddler, the current footprint of the Yankee Peddler is somewhere along about 14,000 square feet. The original footprint of the original Hildreth House, after us going in and surveying the building and investigating, because there was only so much documentation we had to kind of figure out what the original building looked like. We had some really good historical photos and whatnot, but we determined the original building was around 2,200 square feet, not including the porch. So that's around 12,000 square feet of additions that have been added onto from the 1940s to the current day. So the intention is to peel those back to the original structure, and then and restore it as as close as possible to that. And then the question is how does one add to that building in an appropriate way, in a complementary way. Now, what we've done several studies with the building, whether the bank would be located inside the original Hildreth House or in addition. The current direction that we're moving in is that the bank, the main part of the branch, would be located in a building that might be have an aesthetic, a complementary aesthetic to the original building, much like a barn that might have been attached to a residential house, and that parts of the bank would use some of the areas of the original building, and then there also be what we're calling a community room, which would be a room that the bank might program for some larger functions, but might also be available to the community at large. And one feature too, that the open porch, one reason why we like it here is because the open porch would open off of that. So one can imagine on certain occasions that the porch might be an active part of the community function.
I can imagine at one occasion, off the top of my head.
During
Go
the
ahead.
parade, yeah. Yeah, and that would offer some great visibility of the parade. So the main branch would have sort of a barn-like aesthetic, is sort of how we see it moving forward. And the drive-through as well, although it might be a little more open, it may have a wood-framed like structure to it. And then we look at details and fenestration and whatnot that would, again, complement the original scale of the building. This, by the way, is the facade that would be along Beach with the porch and the bank behind it, and the drive-through on the right side there. And then, let me take this down. And this is a view on looking from the north back toward the building with the Hildreth House here, with the original main entrance being here with the wraparound porch continuing around, and then the bank addition behind with a connector piece. So from this side, it becomes apparent that there'll be two entrances to the building, one principal main entrance to the bank from the parking lot, as well as a secondary entrance to the sort of community room function of the building. That would occur in an original porch that was here, a side porch. We're looking at making that the main entrance to that part of the building. And then there's the opportunity, I think, as the site plan is developed, is what happens here on the site, kind of between those two entrances. That'll be something that we'll be looking at as we continue development.
Any questions from the committee? Yeah, I'm pretty impressed by all that myself, so I wouldn't really thought that your main entrance would have been facing that direction, north, but it's pretty interesting the way you got it set up. So I'm real thankful for that, Brendan. So, all right, thank you very much. Appreciate your presentation. Okay, so Attorney Driscoll, Jay, just back to the matter of my quick comments on drive-through. So we've got 3 lanes, right? So one, I assume, is you're going to request a 24-hour ATM. Is that not accurate?
No, I assume it would be a 24-hour ATM, yes.
I would assume it too.
Yeah,
Okay, so we would have to vote on that.
right.
So right. So, but I don't have it right in front of me. So, and then the other 2 lanes are just for, so one, so it's 3 lanes, 2 for when they're being operated by a person during regular bank hours, which I'm sure you're going to provide to me what the regular bank hours are going to be at that location. And then the 3rd lane would be for a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week ATM.
Yeah, and I just want to defer a little bit to the bank to make sure. Sheila Goodwin, maybe you could give us a little information?
Sure. Hi, I'm Senior Vice President in charge of the retailer area. One of the things we're looking at from a technology perspective is to provide either an ATM 24-hour or a video teller 24 hours so that customers will be able to service themselves either by video, where they can, between certain hours, usually from 8 to 7, they can enable a picture or a video of a person in our call center, and they'll be able to dialogue with that person electronically over the computer. And then after hours, that machine will function as an ATM. So that's some of the technology that we're looking at. But it definitely will be some type of 24-hour machine, whether it's an ATM or a video teller.
Okay, and then the other two lanes, so there's 3 lanes, right? So what are the other 2 hours?
Might also be video teller as well. Because the great functionality about that is that you can service customers individually via video from 8 to 7, so we could extend our hours versus with branch hours, when you have the teller inside the branch, you're relegated to the hours of the branch. So if you're open 8:30 to 4, you're not able to talk to a live person after 4 o'clock. So that's some of the technology that we're looking at.
Okay, so all 3 lanes would be open 24 hours?
All 3 lanes.
24 hours.
You could do 2 video and 1 ATM, and we're currently looking at that model right now.
Okay, because so Sheila, what we have to do, one of the things, well, we often do is put in conditions sometimes.
Sure.
So I'm not sure we're looking, if you're looking at 3 24-hour drive-through lanes, that's your proposal, that's what it is, and we would consider that and proceed to a vote somehow.
Okay, gotcha.
So that's one thing. The other one, I think this is more directed at Attorney Driscoll, but maybe Sheila should stand by.
Sure.
So Jay, one of the things that I noticed in our brand-new ordinance, which is a marked improvement of the old one, so I want to say that for a record, but there's really no caveat on there that says that the permit we vote on has any kind of a limit to it. For example, if we voted on a drive-through permit that ran with the land, so in other words, just went on in perpetuity. And say, for example, people wanted to close the operation and sell it to, say, McDonald's or CVS or something like that, that the vote we took, whenever we take the vote, would be transferred automatically to whoever would purchase the property. So our ordinance at this point is silent on that. So it doesn't say now that the permit is only works for the permit holder. Whereas my position would be, that is my position, that the permit should only be with the permit holder. So in other words, but with one caveat. Say, for example, People's Bank merged with, let's just think about Bank of America, just a huge bank. People.
God forbid.
Now that would be
Amen.
Okay. Well, let's think of Joe McGivern Bank that's just brand new and it's huge on the stock exchange. So the McGivern Bank buys them out. Now in that case, I would be fine with the permit kind of running with the land. Did I make myself unclear?
No, I understand what you're saying. I think the statute, the ordinance is silent. I read it as assuming that it would run with the land, just as a site plan review special permit through the planning board. Once you have that permit, it's good for whoever owns
Well,
that
I read it
property.
that way too. I don't think it should run with the land, is my point too, Jay. Because I wouldn't want that to be the case. So I would want to put in appropriate language, or I'm going to make the amendment when that time comes, that it shouldn't run with the land. However, that if it was in the same kind of a business, a financial business, a banking business to be more specific, then it would. But if it turns into like a non-banking business,
Can I ask my client if they have any plans of selling hamburgers there?
I'm sure there's no plans, but
I certainly would think that this could be a special permit that's approved for a banking facility, and I don't think we would have any
you wouldn't have objections. Okay, well okay. I want to, and I haven't had a chance to talk to you offline about this, Jay, and so it's something I would normally have done, but I just.
But obviously, we have to be careful. I mean, the wording. Obviously, this is a banking facility. It's also a financial center. I don't want to hem ourselves in by how we define it. But I mean, if it's a banking for a business providing banking or financial services.
I don't think we're there right now, Jay, but I would want you as their attorney to maybe you can propose potential language. Because I think it's unfair that if, not that I don't think I think you've been in business, is it 1856? No, I'm wrong. What was it?
1885.
1885. Okay, 1885. I mean, pretty solid company, probably not changing, but I'm just saying out loud. Okay, so with that, are we set with proposals? Okay, from presentations. Okay, the public. So, well, we're going to hold off on council. Council's they've had plenty of opportunity to ask questions, and they had their chance, and they'll get another chance down the road. So now we're going to open up to the public, because we are in a public hearing. So if any member of the public would like to address our committee, this is how it works. You walk up to the microphone, you say your name, your address. If you're from outside of the city, then we're going to take a motion whether or not to recognize you. If you're in the city, you're good to go. If you're outside the city, then we'll consider it. So that's one. Then you're just going to address the chair. If you have a question for one of the gentlemen over here, you just say through the chair, and I'm sure they will answer the question for you, or for Attorney Driscoll, or for Mr. Senecal. And then I know we get to talk a lot up here, but you don't. So, but you'll have a fair chance. Okay, so if you want to make a speech, that's okay, but cap it at about a minute and a half. If you want to have a question, we can have a dialogue. Is that okay? Fair ground rules? Okay, so somebody raise his or her hand who would like to speak. Okay, I'm gonna recognize the lady first, and then if you want to come up to the mic. So name, address first.
My name's Stephanie Hess, and my address is 183133 Northampton Street. I'm a new homeowner for 2 years in Holyoke. I was unaware of the street, how Northampton Street is. I just want to make a statement. I live 7 days a week, your traffic patterns and stuff, so I know how it is. Since the hospital renovated, there's even more traffic, and they park on the street. So it's very hard to come in and out. I have been stuck in my driveway because I travel Northampton, turn down Beach Street to go to 391 to get to Chicopee where I work. And it's backed up all the way down there because I'm so close to the light. So the traffic pattern is worse now than it might have been when you were out there in August, because you have the school, more traffic because more people seem to be parking up the street instead of in the parking lot, because it's easier to walk the 2 blocks down there. So my concern is not your drive-thrus on all the other streets, because if I have to, I'll just go straight Northampton and skip Beach Street. It's Northampton Street. I'd like to be able to get in and out of my driveway and not be stuck in there and be late for work.
Boy, Ms. Hess, I think you're raising an incredibly important point. All the parking that's gone now in front of the Peddlers and in front of the United Bank.
And you can't even see coming out of the side streets.
And in front of Oakdale, yeah, it would be nice if we had some at-large counselors, or maybe the Ward 6 counselor would want to propose. I mean, maybe I'll do it myself. I mean,
that's my only concern.
So, yeah, that is a major concern. All the parking that goes on there. That's, you know, perhaps we could somebody, preferably an at-large counselor, but I'll do it myself if they won't bite at it, too, because I'm just on the other side of. I'm on Ward 3. I'm just like across the way.
Okay.
Okay. So, but that is an important
That's
point.
my concern.
And it's very hard to get out. It's hard to see coming out of Corso
Yeah, because
Street.
all the streets
and
block it.
Then you might notice all the PVTA buses that go up and down. I cannot believe that they go
down that little side street.
Yeah,
and
they,
I know.
They cut their way through Corso, and never mind the large DPW vehicles that go through there. But
and I don't even use the drive-through at my bank because it's United, because I can't see coming out of there if I want to go against the traffic.
Of course, the other problem we have, whether or not, because that is a state highway, whether or not we can, you know, impose ordinances, you know, regulations that sort of
would be nice.
Prohibit parking there or limit parking, because that is a really salient point, and I see it all the time.
And it's right
myself.
before the lights where everybody stops.
And 1831 is
right across from United Bank, which is a hop skip from Yankee Peddler. It's just before the lights.
You just moved there?
2 years ago, and I didn't know anything about Northampton Street, so.
Now, where'd you come from, can I ask?
I came from Chicopee.
Out of town, okay, that's all, yeah, I don't want to get drilled down too deep.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, so traffic and parking, okay, thank you, Ms. Hess. Next. Okay.
My name is Vanvijak Kem Ilsagu. I live on 1855 to 1857, right across from the Red House. Fire hydrant.
Welcome. Go ahead.
Okay, so I have the same concern as the lady over here. I lived in Holyoke for 14 years in the same location. I have 2 property that I own right behind the 1855 too. And the concern I have is that when you're heading down on Route 5,
heading down, so you're going
toward Kmart.
So you're traveling south.
That is only 2-lane road, but when you come back from Kmart, there are 3 lanes, 1 left, 1 straight, and 1 right. How can you have that disparity between the north and the southbound? When you move in, it's going to be a lot of people want to take a left turn. Now the traffic's already backed up. And by the way, that light don't work. Sometime when you park all the way to the line or the light, without the car is on the right lane making the right turn, the traffic got stuck. I think that's a city issue. okay? It's nothing to do with the bank. And we do have a lot of backed up all the way to the house, because when I have to pull out my house, okay, I see the traffic. I have to sneak all the way to the line to trigger the light to make sure it's turned green.
Yeah, I could see that.
That's a major issue. When you see the backup, the light don't turn green. So now, when you move in, okay, and you move your existing entrance of the Yankee Peddler to the red house, right? You're gonna knock that house down. This gentleman here that live next to it, they're my neighbor. Okay? Now, when I want to pull out my driveway, I'm gonna have to face the left-turn traffic coming out of your bank. And that can create a danger because I have to back up. Okay? I have no problem with the business. I just want you to do more study on the traffic pattern. Maybe, you know, they're gonna be impacted. I'm gonna be impacted. She's gonna be later on impacted. So I don't mind businesses. I just want to raise my concern that is there anything we can do to work together to get that flow correct?
Okay, so that's one we can maybe address just quickly with the engineers. So traffic flow on Route 5, which in that part of the city isn't as horrible as when you head further south towards Kmart, which that really gets congested pretty heavily, gentlemen. But do we have a dedicated left-hand lane that we're proposing for turning into your new facility off of Northampton Street? Or is it just put your blinker on and...
Yeah, there's no dedicated left turn lane. It's just like any other driveway. You know,
So there's
minor
no
driveway.
roadway improvements that are being proposed?
Not right now.
Are there any conversations we have with Mass DOT relative to this?
Well, I believe that this area, I'm going to look into this, but this area of Route 5 is not state controlled. This is actually under city jurisdiction. So this is something that it sounds like there are detection problems at the intersection. So that's something that we can look at. You know,
Sounds like what problems?
detection, like there are detectors in the roadway that aren't detecting the vehicles, so the lights aren't turning properly. But this is actually a city location. This has nothing to do with DOT. I think the
You're 100% sure?
yeah, the DOT jurisdiction is pretty much the bridges up at 91, but in this location, it's I'll say I'm 95% sure that it's city owned.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm not going to hold you to it one way or the other. I'm just messing with you. So, but I don't know that to be true, but I'm going to defer to you on that one. No, hold on. We'll be with you in a second. Just having a quick conversation. Just hold your thought. So, then relative to Ms. Hess's issue, because I would think that wouldn't be the greatest. I mean, you're going to have all this incredible landscaping along your frontage on Northampton Street, and right now it's park anywhere you want in the breakdown lane. Just park anywhere you want, and that's what happens all the time. We always did it for years at the Peddler. Just park right along Northampton Street, and if you go south, you'll notice at Crozier Field, you'll notice at least 5 no parking signs. No parking. Totally ignored. Ignored every day of the week. I ignored it myself. When people want to play, want to go to Crozier Field, and when I used to coach and all the rest of that, and play ball years ago, yes, they're all. This says no parking all the way down. There isn't a temporary parking. It's no parking all the way down. Cars park there all the time, all on Crozier. So, so that's something I would like to have some feedback on relative to whether we want to have parking or not, or limited parking in front of the property here. But certainly, it's going to impact. I mean, her points I think are excellent. The ones further north and on the other side of the street as well. So those are.
Well, Mr. Chairman, and I'm sure the bank wouldn't have any problem with increased enforcement of any parking problems along either Route 5 or Beach Street.
Yeah, I wasn't really talking about enforcement. I think I was just talking about probably putting in new ordinances that maybe limit the amount of parking that goes allowed on street.
And that would be fine with the bank.
Yeah, great. Okay, ma'am, if you just kind of go up to the microphone.
Mr. and Mrs. Shabunin, our house is, you president, right? Next to your new development, 1846.
All right.
So our concern, how your new development affect our house, which is next door.
Well, so your house, where's your house?
1846.
Okay, and what's the
North,
address? What's the address of the building that you're proposed to demolish?
The building where...
1850.
1850, okay. Well, it sounds like the 1850, if this goes through, so that'll be demolished and that'll be used to make way for a driveway into their property.
There's green space between the parking and her property. We'll do whatever we have to do to, if there's a barrier or plantings or whatever it might be, but there's no plans to do anything other than the green space of the parking.
Is there a fence? Is there a fence proposed?
At this time, there's nothing proposed. I mean, our reputation means a lot to us. We'll do what we have to do to make sure the neighbors are
That's
happy.
that's slightly beyond this committee's role, although I hear you. So what is it that you would like to see?
Okay. How far you going to build some things? Not building, but you demolish 1850, and what's gonna be on this place? Enter parking lot or green area?
Jay can address for you.
This here is the spot that we're...
That's right, yep, you gotta use a mic.
that over here.
Okay, yep, you have to use a mic.
This here is the spot that we're talking about right here. And I think actually if you look at it, this is the existing property line that's synonymous with your property line. And I think it's actually going to get better for you because there's going to be more green space. I think right now there's only a really small driveway between the two houses there. So the house next to you is coming down, and this is 20 scale, so there's probably at least up front 20 feet of that's just going to be proposed as grass and plantings, you know, skinnying down towards the back to maybe 10 or 15 feet.
It means instead of the house, 1850 is gonna be green area?
Yes, yeah, that's going to be this area right in here. That house right now sits like right in here. So it's going to be mostly green space, mostly plantings and landscaping.
Okay. And physical involvement may affect our house somehow?
I'm not following your question.
I mean, it's gonna be...
You mean the demo work?
Yeah.
So when it's demolished, would it
How
affect your house?
affect,
Yeah, what impact would the demolition have on our house?
surface?
There'll be, given the proximity to your house, there'll be safeguards put in place to make sure there's no damage to your structure. You know, the means and methods that they'll use to take it down and to make sure there isn't dust and contamination and things like that.
I'm just concerned if our house increase in value or lose in value while there's all development around business and another business.
I can just, it won't be damaged by the demolition. And like I said, I think you're going to have more landscaping and green space next to it in terms of value up or down.
Okay.
I'm an engineer.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much for coming. Yes, sir, please.
My name's David McGarrigle. I own the house right next door to you. where your driveway is gonna be off of Beach Street.
Dave, what's the address, please?
Excuse me?
Address?
607, 605 Beach Street.
Thank you, Dave. Go ahead.
It's the house right behind the Yankee Fiddler. Where your existing driveway that's going in is gonna be right next to my driveway. What's the width of that barrier that you've got planned there?
The landscape area here?
Yeah, about how
Again,
wide
this-
is that?
Yep, this is a 20 scale plan, so you're probably looking at 20 or 25 feet, including the sidewalk that's running up there.
Oh, okay, I was just curious to see what they would, no.
Yep, and the plan is to have we're showing trees and landscaping as a buffer there.
Okay, now I've got one other question on two houses you got that you own behind me there on Porter Street.
Yep,
Is that barricade that you're showing there with all greenery gonna block off their parking lot that they have back there behind those two houses now?
yes, yeah, the intent would be to separate the parking for the new banking facility from the parking for those two houses on Corsa Street.
So the two houses on Porter Street, they'll still have that driveway between their two houses?
Correct, yep, that'll be their access, yep.
That's all I have, thanks.
Thank you, David. Anyone else from the public? Okay. Does the proponent want to make a statement at this point?
Look, we would just like to let the committee know that obviously this is the first step in a long process. My understanding is the planning board is discussing this tomorrow and will submit, according to the new ordinance, they have the opportunity to submit comments, and it's my understanding they would do that tomorrow, I believe, and they'll be submitting a letter, well, I'm not sure what form their comments will take, but they'll be submitting something to you in accordance with the ordinance. So I would hope that you have everything that you need, assuming we can straighten out the traffic study, which hopefully has been delivered to you. And then we would just ask your consideration and giving us a favorable vote so that we can move forward with this project.
All right, thank you, Attorney Driscoll. So I did get an email from the planning, September 18th, to Counselor. Planning staff has done a preliminary review that we hope to wrap soon, due to the planning board policy of wanting greater oversight of section 716 drive-through uses and the board's scheduling availability. They will be reviewing this application at their meeting of 9/26, and a letter, that's tomorrow, and a letter will be forwarded to the committee shortly thereafter. Board comments will not be available for your 9/25 meeting. So that's the input we have from planning board.
And our only consideration was that if this board was so favorably inclined to vote in favor, that perhaps it could be voted contingent upon receipt of that planning board letter. I don't know what the committee's timetable is for moving forward on this.
Right. Councilor Governor?
If I could, Mr. Chairman, first for the record, we do have the traffic study. I'm not sure why it wasn't made available, but it was in our office for public view, and certainly it is for our preview. I have had a chance to look at it quickly. I'm not as good as Michael is with numbers, but I do see what he said, that the trips and the intersections are there. I think there's a lot of questions from the neighbors that are questions that we always have to work on in terms of traffic mitigation, regardless of the business or the residential home on any of these streets. And I think some of the questions that came up this evening are, as Councilor Bartley said, some new ordinances that we need to do in creating with the on-street parking, but also enforcing some existing ordinances. No one can park within 10 feet of anyone's driveway, including the person who owns the house, and no one can park within 20 feet of any intersection within the city of Holyoke. And that is abused a lot. Now, the measurements for the intersection go from the center of the road, and in really busy spots, we will put up signs, but I think as the song says, Jay, signs everywhere, messing up the scenery. We try not to put up as many signs as we can. But I think we can work on traffic mitigation in terms of this project, any additional impact, but also know what we have to do to protect the homes and protect the residential quality of the neighborhood. I think there isn't a better corporate citizen in this community than People's Savings Bank. And I think they will live up to their word from the CEO, president this evening, that they will work with the homeowners in terms of a lot of things, including what really comes at the next step, which is site plan review. What we're looking for is, does this use, banking financial facility, condone a special permit for a drive-through for what they're proposing? I feel, Mr. Chairman, our questions have been answered this evening, and we'll be comfortable if there's no answers being looked for from any other counselor to taking the next step to putting a recommendation in front of the city council at our next meeting.
Okay. I don't happen to agree with that. But that's me. I'd be more of the opinion that we continue this for as short of a period of time as we can, because we are going to get a letter from planning tomorrow. I don't think it's wise for this committee to make a recommendation as noble and as honorable as any institution is. There's none more so than People's. I'm sure we can agree with that. But to take a vote now to forward it to a city council without a planning board a letter, I don't think it's prudent. And I know it's coming, but I'd rather have it. But that's just me. Councilor Sullivan?
Yeah, I'd like to see us move forward tonight with this also. We'll have plenty of time between now and the full city council meeting. If there's other issues, we'll have time to study the letter from the planning board. I really think we've got to start moving beyond this impression of Holyoke not being business friendly. Let's get on with this. There'll be plenty of time over the next couple of weeks for any other concerns.
All right. Well, I mean, I'm not, I don't want to hold anything up here. I don't think we are, but that's, if you're going to do that, then I would certainly want to have, would want to have conditions put on it. So that, I think the drive-through, they want three 24-hour lanes. I think we should have a condition relative to the permit not being transferable to a non-financial, non-banking institution. So that'd be my recommendation. I also raised a couple of questions about the traffic flow. So I think this. I think we should have a couple. Listen. You can make a motion the way you want it. I know I'm going to vote. I'd rather continue the public hearing, but I'm just one vote, so that's just me. So I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing to. For 1 week, because we're not meeting anyhow. As the councilors know, we're not meeting again until October 3rd. Am I looking at this right? Yeah. So I would say we can continue this to October 2nd at 6:30 p.m. That would give us. We're still ahead of the city council meeting.
I'll second that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
That's next Monday?
That is next Monday.
Okay.
I think that's.
Could I ask a point of order?
No,
Okay.
You're not recognized. You cannot.
That's fine.
I'm not recognizing you.
So, just for clarification, that's fine.
No.
I'll explain my second if I could, Mr. Chairman.
On discussion.
As much as I have all my questions answered, if there is some information anyone is looking for, I have no problem with that. As far as the timetable goes, the next city council vote won't be till Tuesday, October 3rd, regardless of what we do this evening. We can only receive new information in a public hearing setting. Once we close it, we cannot receive new information. And once we hear from the planning board, we can hear from under any circumstances because they're part of the city. but we can't take new testimony from a petitioner or new testimony from the public.
Well, that's right, Joe, and so,
So I'm willing to compromise with your question
Yeah.
and go to next Monday.
Okay, so we have a second on the motion, and it's under discussion right now. And so the motion would be to continue this to Monday, October 2nd, where we can take in new information. If the Ty and Bond people have any answers to any questions that were raised tonight, they can present it to us then. If Attorney Driscoll has any specific information, specifically how we wrote if we want to change the special permit language so we don't have it run with lane, but it's only specific to financial banking, I would very much welcome that from your office, Jay. I don't mean to be quick with you there, but that just happen all the time. We take questions, we just bog down. We all had a chance to sort of address us. Council Tallman?
Yeah, I agree. I think that we should continue this till next week. Most of my questions were answered to my colleagues here, but I didn't get a chance to really look at the book, the traffic study, and I'd like to do that before I make any major decisions. And hearing from the residents out here tonight, I think it's important to take into consideration, especially the parking out there on Northampton Street, which is difficult, people getting in and out of their driveway. And it gives us time to look at that in a week and also before our meeting, so we'll have time to digest all this information, and I think that's important to do this the right way before we sort of quickly make a decision tonight.
Yeah, and I think we're moving expeditiously anyhow. As Councilor McGivern rightly pointed out, and that was my point in going to October 2nd, but he crystallized it, is that basically the city council meets October 3rd anyhow. So we're not delaying anything, and yet will give us time to hear from the planning board and get a recommendation. I will make a point to contact Mr. Burkott tomorrow to let him know if in fact we vote this way, that we need to get something to all of us ASAP, and to Attorney Driscoll ASAP, so that he has a chance to address it. So to the public, if we do vote this way, we would vote to continue the public hearing. So that means we would be right back here next Monday. You would have a chance to address us again with your concerns, and I'll try to, the letter from the planning board, I don't know how we're going to get that. You can contact Ryan Allen in our office. Ryan would have a copy of the planning board letter, so you have a chance to review that and digest it over the next few days. Okay? Council Sullivan, all set?
Yep, yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. On the motion, continue it to October 2nd at 6:30. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none? No. Okay, we're going to continue it to then, okay? All right, thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it.
And good luck with the planning board.
Okay, so October 2nd at 6:30 p.m. We're continuing this one. All right, so.
We need the part about the drive-through.
Yeah, the drive-through part.
If we don't have it in a smaller version,
Yeah, do you have a smaller version somewhere? Do you want?
and if you can trade the smaller version,
Yeah.
Andy, that'll work later, okay?
Yeah, very helpful, so thank you so much. Okay.
There's only three, so I gave them to David, but go ahead, I got what I saw.
Okay, we have a gentlemen, so if I could just get a motion on, okay, so we took, before I forget, can we just, item number 2, we didn't have,
Motion, Mr. Chairman, if I could make a motion.
turn your mic on.
Yep. Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, on item number 2, we did not take a vote.
Correct.
If I could just make a motion that item number 2 has been complied with. That's with Mr. Tim Brennan from the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission's appearance and being so grateful they answer us a lot of
Yeah.
questions and it gives
And
us a
thank
lot of
you.
information.
Thank you, Councilman McGivern, for recognizing that, and Council Tallman, and just want to reiterate, thank you to Tim Brennan. Again, we kind of dove right into this, but that was, I mean, helpful as always, so that was helpful. Okay, on the motion to comply with, all in favor? Aye. Okay, can I get another motion, please?
Motion to take item number 4 off the table.
Second?
And open public hearing?
Open up the public hearing.
Okay, so motion is to take item number 4 off the table and open a public hearing on the motion. All in favor? Aye. Special permit application for Paulo Ferrero for non-conforming structures other than a single and two-family structure at 2-4 Portland Street.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now perfectly.
Great. So I have material on my computer, but I turn in for packages. So, but I don't know if you have the packages that I turn in for everybody.
Ms. Fur, yes, I
All right,
have
terrific.
one. So let me. Okay, so Ms. Fur, so here we are here. For an easement of the current, I'm asking for an easement of the current zoning regulations in order to rebuild a garage of the same dimensions of the one destroyed, damaged by wind and then demolished. Okay, and so current everywhere, okay. And so you have a garage in the back right corner of your house?
That is correct.
Okay, and that garage was?
It was about a year ago.
Yeah.
And the garage was about 100 years old, was fine. One of my neighbors kept a car in it. There were some really high wind. One corner separated. I called the insurance company for repair. The insurance appraiser, who was a contractor, determined that the garage could not be fixed and that it was unsafe, and so it had to be demolished. We got a permit, we demolished the garage. When we came in to ask for a permit to rebuild, according to the current zoning regulation, the garage is too close to the other property line. So in a way, I would have to put it in the middle of the little yard I have. And there's no room to build it. I have brought, if I can approach, I brought images of the house.
You can just use this microphone.
Oh, yeah. So right here, this is the picture of the property, which I got from Google Map, where this is where the garage was. So this is a little garage. This is a picture that I took from the driveway. So it's been taken out, and I have the asphalt square where the garage would be rebuilt. This is an image from my neighbors behind me.
All right.
And so they have there's a raised wall here, they have asphalt, and I made a blue, can you all see?
Yeah, that's
And I made a blue.
pretty impressive.
Of where?
Yeah, thank you.
You are very talented.
You certainly are.
Where the garage would be rebuilt.
Very talented.
So, and you know, partially this is where the asphalt, where the garage was, and it's just horrible, you know.
Okay, so I get the picture. So what is it you want to do?
I just want to rebuild, I brought the plan.
On the same footprint?
Yeah.
The exact same footprint?
Yes.
Exact same height?
And I brought the picture. So we already have a drawing from an architect, and it's basically the exact garage, only a little smaller.
Okay, so,
And I have the map of the property, so it would go right here.
all right.
And I couldn't ask them to come, but I brought 2 testimony from my neighbors that they're pro the rebuilding. It's just low tech here, but I didn't want them to sit here, but I made little videos of them, so I think this should work.
No kidding. No, this will be a first video presentation. Is this legal?
It is, Mr. Chairman, but then we have to keep the phone because it's being presented.
Does this comply with open meeting law right now? I'm not sure if it does.
I'm a neighbor of Paula's. I'm all in favor of her putting up another garage because I know her garage was unsafe before and she did the right thing by taking it down. Now she wants to rebuild. She's done a lot of good work on her house. I'm all in favor of her putting up another garage because I know she'll do a good job at that too.
So he doesn't say his name or his address, but that was impressive.
No, he actually did, but you missed it. I can replay it.
I missed the beginning? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Could you, if we give you our
And I have one
administrative
more.
assistance
My
number,
name is
can you
Stephen
send a copy
LaPointe,
of
and
the
I
video?
live at 14 Portland Street, and I'm in favor of Paula building a new garage.
Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
Okay.
The other side of you?
Boy,
14?
that's,
Is that 14?
No, they are.
that was 14. He said 14.
Yeah.
And my neighbor,
On Beach?
Rafael Santos, who's right next to me,
Oh, I know where he is, yeah.
I called him, but he doesn't live there anymore,
Okay.
and we couldn't meet to make a video, but you can talk to him.
But did you talk to Bernie and Mary Lavelle?
I did not.
That's okay, you should. They're great people.
They are Portland Street.
Okay,
All right, so, all right, thank you.
sure.
Thank you. Is that,
Just a quick question while Paul is here. Councilor Bartley asked you, it's the same footprint, meaning the same concrete slab?
Yes.
No bigger in
No.
dimension?
And we're actually not pouring, we're just building right on top.
Right on top of it?
Yeah.
And the height is going to be the same?
Exactly the same,
Okay.
all right,
yeah.
Okay.
And also the insurance is paying for it, so we're.
Beautiful.
We're trying to keep it at.
Okay. And is it siding that's going to match?
Well, the house has plastic siding on. Right now I'm asking because I like nicely aesthetic thing. So if we can go.
To be
with-
nicer than what's there?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
all right, so that's, and I know you're gonna, I know you're gonna make that motion, Joe, but hold your thought a minute, because we have, okay. Are you good to go with your presentation? Are you all set? Okay. All right, we are in a public hearing. Is anyone here from the public who wants to speak in favor or against this proposal? Okay, I don't hear anyone. All right. Now we have, hold on.
I'm waiting.
Hold on. We received, we, meaning me, received a letter dated September 25th. I could check what time it came in, but it was this afternoon. It's from the building commissioner. And basically, it's, he says to deny the permit. Now, let's see what he says in here. Let's see what he says in here. So, on 11/16/16, a permit application is received and reviewed, denied for the following reasons. A plot plan showing the proposed structure with the correct setbacks, I'm assuming he means incorrect setbacks, but a plot plan showing the proposed structure with the correct setbacks, no reply to multiple attempts by phone and email to resolve this issue. Pursuant to Mass General Law, if you, I'm going to skip all that part, it's not relevant. Dear committee members, a special permit application you read a review for a placement garage was damaged. Okay, first it should be noted this special permit is being incorrectly applied for under the wrong, there's a technical reason, all right, we can skip that. Attached you will find the documents related to an application for a building permit to build a new garage, which was denied. The following were determining factors. Number one, numerous attempts were made to collect satisfactory information to issue the permit as of right. Two, by code and policy, we do not hold pending applications indefinitely. The permit was applied for in November of 16 and responded to the same day. From there, the applicant failed to provide all the required information to receive a permit, which resulted in a denial dated January 23rd. You can in a minute. It's just January 23rd, 2017. Information was provided to the owner and applicant that the garage would need to be 5 feet from the side and 8 feet from the rear in order to be compliant. If these minimums could not be met, they were informed of the special permit process. Suggested considerations. One, the submittal package to the council does not include proposed setbacks you will find in the original permit application the setback proposed is 2 feet from each lot line. In the case where a structure is to be allowed so close to the property lines, I suggest a land survey of the lot to ensure what is proposed is true and correct. 2, the original garage roof was a hip roof. With the hip roof, the water was diverted 4 ways. The proposed roof in the drawings is a gable style. This is a pitch to the sides from the center. This change will divert any water differently than it would have in the past. This is a factor that should be considered. This is more important when allowing a structure to be constructed nearly on the property line. Now you can address us. So, okay.
This is interesting because...
You guys speak into the mic.
I think this is interesting because I didn't file the permit. I had hired a contractor, so I guess they never responded, which is good to know. I hired them, they did the demolition, and then they told me that the permit was denied.
So here's my feeling on this. Here's my feeling. And again, I'm just one vote. So this is a September 25th letter. How great is that to get it like 2 hours before a meeting when it was denied January 23rd? So you can imagine my opinion on this letter right now. I don't have a very high opinion of this letter. That doesn't mean I don't respect the person. So let it be known that I respect them. I don't have a high opinion in getting a letter 2 hours before a meeting. I don't have a high opinion of that. So you just heard us continue a public hearing to next Monday.
Okay.
What say we continue this next Monday, but we reverse it this time? In other words, you go first, and People's Bank, they can go second. This will give you some time to speak with the building commissioner to sort of, everybody get on the same page. I mean, right now, I think you could hurt, we're pretty warm to your opinion. I think that's the sense I got from the committee. I'm warm to it. We obviously want to help you. And we want you to have a garage where you always had a garage. So, do you think would be fair for us to continue it to next Monday at October 2nd at 6:30? Is that convenient time for you?
Yeah, I actually teach in New York until 2 every Monday. But I just made it, but I will, so it'll be done.
Okay, so how about this? If you make it here on time, we'll have you go first. If you don't make it on time, we'll just have you go later. Because you saw how long that went. It'll probably go for at least a half an hour.
And what I do before Monday, I'll ask my contractor to put gutters on the drawing. And I'll bring more picture on where the water goes, so we can address that.
So why don't you email or have you email the building commissioner?
Yes.
Or if he doesn't respond in a timely fashion, i.e. within an hour, you can email me or any of the committee members, because I forwarded this to all of them. At least I hope I did. If I didn't, I apologize. I just got this, so if I didn't forward it to you, I apologize. I'll forward it to you today. I've just been such a rush
I
today.
read it a little different. I read it as your contractor was denied, but the non-conforming oversteps what the denial reasons were. The non-conforming allows the setbacks to remain the way they are. The non-conforming vote.
That's right. So with a special permit, no, we read it the same way, but
that's what I was thinking.
It's still.
It'll be good to get it clarified.
I think this is resolvable, and so okay. So I'm going to make a motion that we continue this public hearing to Monday, October 2nd at 6:30 p.m.
Very well.
I don't have a second yet. Okay, I have a second for that. Okay, under discussion, hearing none. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we'll, all right, thank you.
Is that Mr. Coffer?
Mr. Cody.
Cody.
Mr. Cody.
Very good.
Okay?
Yes.
Thank you.
And is there a number that I have to refer to, or for the letter?
You know what?
I'll take a picture.
You know what? Take that.
Oh.
Take mine.
Thank you very much.
I'll print out another one. See how helpful we are here? Do you see how friendly we are?
No.
No. Okay. And my letter, my one copy, but I'll make another copy. Just somebody send me a reminder if I don't do it tomorrow. Just send me a text or an email. I'll know what it means. Okay. All right. Okay, so that's continued. So hold on a second. Let's Okay. All right, so this is taken up 25, tabled. This is taken up 925, tabled. All right. Is that? Okay, so, all right, last one I think we have, which, well, we don't have a last one. Looks like we might have another one here as well, but let's sort of take that at one at a time. So if I get a motion for number 5, please.
Motion to take number 5 up for discussion.
Second.
On the motion, take number 5 to the table. All in favor? Aye. City Council, in accordance with Chapter 30B, declare the property located at 144 High Street as surplus property available for disposition. Oh, we like that. The property was awarded to the city in June of 16 via a land court decree with a judgment recorded, et cetera, et cetera. The property is described, et cetera, et cetera. 5,460 square foot building situated on 3,300 square feet of land, zoned downtown business with an assessed value of $82,400. And before us we have whom?
Whichever you want.
Why don't you both come in? Why don't you both come on in and we'll, so we have our solicitor and our Office and Planning and Economic Development Director here. So we've got all right. Thank you.
I think both of us thought that each one of us was responsible for coming here today, and we didn't realize the other one was coming.
There's plenty of items I'm sure you're interested in this evening.
It was eventful.
How often do we get Tim Brennan in the chambers?
That's a historic first. But that's
That was the first.
But that's why we changed the committee. So that's why we get, you know, the Mass DOT guys.
Oh, yeah, it's great.
I mean, they're great.
They're great, yeah.
And we'll have them in the spring.
Spring, yeah.
Spring, come in. So, yeah, it's, I always learn something. Okay, so 144 High Street. Fire away, guys.
Just very briefly, as you mentioned in the order, this is a tax title foreclosure property. The city acquired it, I believe, in June of 2016. That very first sheet of pictures is from an inspection in January of this year. We did have a tax title auction in the summer, but multiple departments agreed that a property like this, given its condition, you can see in some of the pictures there's some significant water damage. The roof has caved in the rear. Otherwise, it's a very viable two-story property located just down the street, 144 High Street. But an RFP offers a bit more control over the development opportunities and ensuring that you get a qualified developer to respond, as opposed to putting it out to tax title auction and you just get the highest bidder. Although we have restrictions and ways to ensure development of tax title properties, the RFP process is desirable.
Marcos, you want to add anything?
Sure. I mean, I would say that even if we had auctioned it, the likelihood of getting a large offer for the property was probably low. But the upside of doing the RFP, as Paul was suggesting, is that you have a corridor there, that up to the corner you have some historic properties that have been rehabilitated over many years. It's quite active, and this property is abutting Lyman Terrace that's getting millions of dollars of investment. So making sure that we can, as much as possible, control our quality development at that property would be in the city's best interest. So that's why we're hoping to take it through a request for proposals rather than an auction. And I know the committee knows it, but you know, for the record, declaring it surplus, all that does is allowing the executive branch to put out the request for proposals. Once the proposals are evaluated, then the highest scoring proposal would then be brought to the council for approval.
Thank you, Marcos. Counselor Sullivan, you have a question?
Yeah. How long was this property in arrears before we took it to land court?
I did a title search actually this morning. I was sort of curious about, this is an odd one. It has, since it seems like the 90s, there's been a tax title recorded every few years and then redeemed. And then this last tax title was just recorded as it shows in the packet 2012. And that had not been redeemed, so that was the tax title that was foreclosed upon. So technically only since 2012 had it been in arrears, but really it had been several years before then that had been falling into tax title, getting picked out.
Okay, so in layman's terms, the building remained vacant, unused, but the owner kept catching up on the taxes, but not maintaining the building.
Correct.
That's not 3 years worth of damage I'm looking at. That's 20 years worth of damage.
Absolutely. I think it's been vacant for a significant period of time.
Okay. Well, I think you're heading in the right direction with the RFP. No question about that. At an auction, I wouldn't offer $1 for that. You're going to have a very hard time even on an RFP. So I might understand if nobody responds to the RFP, this is another one for demolition?
I mean, it could be. We would still have the option of auctioning off. Essentially, if we have interest in the property, we have multiple ways of getting rid of the property. But if it gets to a point where it's not a marketable property, then yeah, we could put it in the queue for demolition. Well, it won't stand forever.
Well, my question here is somebody could come along at the auction and buy it for $1, right?
Yes, if we auctioned it, someone could buy it for $1, correct?
And then once again, do nothing with it. I mean,
Correct.
From what I've seen, I've done a little looking around also. There's a 10 by 10 foot gaping hole in the roof. The snow's been coming in, the water's been coming in. It's got a nice facade on the front, and the rest of it's trash. Am I
have not been
overreacting
personally-
here? Or
I haven't personally been in the building, so I don't know.
All right. I've got no problem going ahead with the declaring it surplus, but I think we have to move very, very, very fast, and I wouldn't offer it up to auction or anything for that matter that where there wasn't going to be immediate results or stipulations of such on the property. I mean, this place is a disaster.
Yeah, and I think that's what you do anyhow. And then there's reverted clause things, and if you have an auction, you can have a reserve number anyhow. So, you have various ways to sort of ensure that the project moves along. And I know you've done that. Councilman McGivern?
First question, Paul, I think you answered, but my understanding is in and out of tax title, or as you put it, the owner, we're familiar with the property being an artist who lived there with his wife for decades. And is the last owner the same person that is listed here?
Yes.
Has there been no contact with them, with the family?
I'm not sure. I know our outside counsel handles handles the land court proceedings, so I'm not sure how involved they were. And all I have from the file is the foreclosure judgment.
Is this, I'm not used to such a fast track, although I believe the efforts of you and the tax committee itself, has put a lot of these projects on the fast track. But does the committee, the treasurer, with the help of the outside counsel, work with the property owners?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if there's usually there's repayment plans, if somebody's behind on their taxes. That's, you know, the sort of first tact is to get them involved in a repayment plan. My assumption would be that with this property, as Councilor Sullivan had alluded to, it had been abandoned for a period of time, and eventually they just stopped paying taxes. I could, you know.
Well, it's interesting though, because stop paying taxes is only 2012, and the property's been abandoned a lot longer, or vacant a lot longer. I wouldn't say it was abandoned, you know, more than 5 years, but vacant for more than 5 years is appropriate. Marcus, it was used both as a residence and as a studio, which is something that we're really promoting with not only this type of zone, but for the entire area, including the urban renewal development plan. I'm having trouble talking tonight. Councilor Sullivan had a good question, but if you are going to market this, would you market it as both residence / commercial?
Yeah, we would market it as a flexible opportunity. You know, usually the first floor commercial is very attractive, particularly in that area of High Street. What we do have plenty of in High Street too is second floor vacant, waiting for better conditions to occupy it, but we also have some residential. So marketing it as something that can be used both immediately or something that can be done in phases could provide the flexibility of someone saying, all right, I have a good project, but I don't necessarily have all the capital to do it all at once. It could be an attractive opportunity for them.
And remind me, if the city were able to sell it with the permission of the city council, even if it was for $1, reverter clauses are still part of the deal, and they would have X amount of time to fix it or give it back.
Correct. Reverter clause we keep on every project because it's a way of holding the developer accountable. Clearly, there are some situations that people cannot foresee, and our intent isn't to take the property back just because we want these properties. We want to get them out to the developers. But the intent is you're spending time, you're spending your money on this, and if you're not, we're not going to tolerate speculation. We're just going to grab it back.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess, why this building? I mean, you got a lot of buildings out there that are, why this one?
Why RFPing this building rather than bidding it?
Yeah.
The building is a budding Lyman Terrace that's getting millions of dollars in investment, and it's also right next to other properties that have gotten investment over at least a decade, the Caledonian and others. So it has other assets next to it that if we're able to control the type of project that goes there, we feel like it would be in the best interest of the city of doing that, getting a quality development.
Where will you be marketing this?
We market it online and the real estate journals.
I plan to distribute it to some of the developers and receivers that the city works with. We did that for the tax title auction and got a few folks. And to your prior question, Councilor Bartley, I think this property going to RFP as opposed to auction, as I mentioned earlier, it's really just looking for the opportunity to ensure that whoever is coming into ownership of this building is able and qualified to do the work. And you can have situations where a property goes out for tax title auction and the winning bidder pays $50,000 and they have $20,000 to invest into the property, and they outbid the guy who has $1 million to invest. So it's something that with the RFP, you're able to ensure that you get somebody who's able to follow through on the conditions that we
No,
set forth.
I want to get it out there. I mean, I voted consistently. There's always get stuff out. I have 100%, but it just seems to me that this is a little. Sounds like somebody's interested in this, and somebody's probably made you aware that they're interested in it, and they want to move it along, and I think that's fine. I just wish there were more properties out there instead of just one at a time. If you package a dozen of these,
I'd like to do
I mean,
that.
you know, are we gonna have to come back here and do, you know, whatever, you know, one cabbage, or what, I don't say one cabbage, I say, how about, you know, 1150 XYZ Street? I mean, let's do more than one at a time is my point. So, I mean, my guess is somebody's probably interested in this because of proximity to certain other projects, and they want to see it move along. That's my guess. But I wish there was just a more of a concerted effort to get more of these properties out there as often as we can. I'd rather just keep pushing them out the door. Because there's no reason to be holding out to properties anymore. That's my...
I agree with what David's saying here. If there's an interested property, somebody interested in this, that's why it's moving forward. We should embrace this guy or group or whoever they are and give them a whole pack. But let's see if we can move more of these forward at a faster pace and even put them together as a package instead of these onesies and twosies. Because there's too many of these and they've gone too far. Too many and they've gone too far.
I mean, listen, I think you did great when we had the auction. I think we had, I don't know, it was like 19 properties, something like that. I mean, you got them out the door.
I think we just had another one burned.
What are we doing?
We just
I mean,
had
if Sedell doing what they have to do, we get them in our hands and we just move them along. And this is the process, and
we just had another one burned down on Main Street this week.
That's right, Mike. Yeah,
you know?
That's right. So, okay, all right. So I'll make the motion that we declare 144 High Street surplus, and we recommend it to the full City Council.
I'll second that.
Discussion, hearing none on the motion. All in favor? Aye. Okay, so we're going to recommend that to the full City Council, that we declare that that's surplus. Now, hold the phone 1 second. Now, we got all sorts of last-minute text messages and all the rest of that going on here, and we had a little. So, Marcos, what do we? There was an order that I filed on the city's behalf some months ago that we had intended to put on this agenda, and we did not put it on the agenda for. There's a little bit of a glitch. So, that being said, what did Ms. Barnes have to say about this? We're okay to bring it up, or what?
As far as Ryan communicated to me via email, he talked to Crystal, and she said it was fine to bring up. I wasn't part of the conversation. I think it was because it was on a previous agenda and it was tabled.
Well, here's the thing. We are meeting this at the October 2nd. That is the day before the October 3rd meeting. Why don't we just make sure it's on an official agenda for October 2nd, and that way we don't have to have an issue.
I think the other issue was also.
And we can take it up right away too. And we have all this material back here that I wasn't. I mean, it's been sitting here.
It's only a report. It doesn't require council action, but it does require us, by the terms with the Mass Historical Commission, to report to the council.
Okay,
so that may have been part of it. Why Crystal thought that it was okay to discuss, but I certainly understand if the body wishes to do something else. You call the shots. It's your agenda.
Well, let me rephrase it. If we did hold it, take it up October 2nd, is that going to impact your grant?
So at the time that I sent you the email, it was my full belief that we did have to present by the end of September. That's no longer the case, right? We can present in October.
You can?
Yes. So by the time I sent you the email earlier today, it was my understanding that we had.
Who's with you?
Debbie Opperman. She's a senior project manager in the Office of Planning and Economic Development. She's worked on the historic preservation plan as staff.
Debbie, I don't think we've met, so, okay, so nice, okay, so nice to make your, when did Debbie start with us?
Last year, March?
Okay, don't say, okay, no, I was gonna say, don't say like 7 years ago, because that would be embarrassing. All right, okay, so does that sound like a plan? So that way we don't have to,
Okay.
yeah, I'm sorry you have all this stuff here, but you can just, you can leave it here till next week if you want.
We can, we can set up a
or maybe
it's
not.
okay.
Okay, so,
Debbie, did you find the meeting interesting anyways?
I did, because
Okay.
the People's Bank has come before the historical.
who's funnier, but Joe or me? Who's more comedy? All right, so, all right, with that, why don't we adjourn then? I think we're okay. So, motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you very much. We are, October 2nd at 6:30, okay? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.